I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
The 8 passengers case just took a super messy turn, and the courtroom drama is getting crazier by the minute. I mean, we're talking about Ruby Franke now making some pretty shocking accusations like sexual abuse against her own kids. Like, seriously disturbing stuff. Guys, things are thick because even YouTube got involved. It gets even worse because more and more people, especially family members, are stepping forward, dishing out some seriously messed up info that we had no clue about. You know, we used to wonder how Ruby Franke and Kevin treated their kids when cameras weren't rolling, because what they showed us already made us cringe. But now, after closely following this whole case, yep, let's just say Ruby, Kevin, and Jody are monsters. Hold on tight, loves, because I've got a lot to fill you in on, starting with the heartbreaking 911 call that started all these things all the way to the shocking court confessions. All right, loves, without wasting any more time, let's dive right into it.
911, the address of your emergency. Tell me exactly what's happened.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking just...
So by now, the news about Ruby Franke and Jody Hindlebrandt's arrest is like a broken record. But hold up, we haven't given enough credit to the neighbor who made the 911 call, because people had been trying to get the police and CPS involved in this case for years. There was even an online petition at one point begging the authorities to rescue those kids. But guess what? Ruby and Kevin somehow managed to slip through the cracks, even making a video where they basically laughed at all of us because they thought they were untouchable.
With her,
I was accused of abuse. It's like, it's abuse to expect your children to be responsible.
To grow up and be productive adults.
so again, to contradict.
So yeah, that 911 call was a game changer. Trigger warning, loves, your heart will drop into your stomach when you hear Jody's neighbor describe the state of Ruby's son when he came running for help. He ran to ask for help.
I just had a 12-year-old boy show up here at my front door asking for help. And he's said he just came from a neighbor's house, and we know there's been problems at this neighbor's house. He's emaciated, he's got tape around his legs, he's hungry, and he's thirsty.
Tonight, the haunting 911 call from the neighbor who found the son of Ruby Franke after he allegedly escaped from being tied up in a basement.
Fox 13 News reporter Lucy Nelson breaks down that phone call and tells us what came out of the YouTube mom's first court appearance today.
Lucy joins us now live in studio. And Lucy, for those just catching up on this story, describe who we're talking about here and who was in court.
Kelly, Ruby Franke is a Utah mother of 6 behind a well-known parenting YouTube channel called 8.
So right off the bat, from what we can hear in that call, the neighbors knew something fishy was going on at Jody Hindlebrandt's house. Remember, y'all, that's the same place where Jody and Ruby used to host their channel, dishing out therapy and parenting advice. While in the basement, there were kids who were duct taped and practically dying of thirst and hunger. And loves, is it just me, or does it feel a little too convenient that Jody's house is tucked away in such an isolated neighborhood? Now, I get it, people love the peace and quiet, but I'm starting to think Jody chose this spot so she could run her torturous show without anyone knowing and keeping her victims far, far away from the rest of the world.
Police say this is the house a young child escaped from and went to a neighbor's house asking for food and water. They said that child was severely malnourished along with another one they found inside the same home. Now,
the dispatcher on the other end asked if there was anybody nearby looking for the kids, and the caller said no, their homes are pretty far apart. So this brave kid, bless their heart, they walked several doors down the street in this not so crowded neighborhood, mind you, and as soon as they rang that doorbell, they asked the person inside to call the police. Now, here's where it gets really heart-wrenching. The neighbor in the middle of the call legit started crying while describing this poor kid's health.
This kid has obviously been, I think he's been detained. He's obviously covered in wounds.
And get this, Ruby's son even said they were being told these atrocious punishments were all their fault for being undisciplined. Classic Mormon stuff. Remember how Ruby Franke used to go all in on this when punishing her kids? She'd call it the consequences of your actions.
You promise? Look at Mama. I just got a text message from Eve's teacher, and she said that Eve did not pack a lunch today, and can I bring a lunch over to the school? This happens quite often when you're raising children, because I know that her teacher is uncomfortable with her being hungry and not having a lunch, and it would ease her discomfort if I came to the school with a lunch. But I responded and just said, Eve is responsible for making her lunches in the morning, and she actually told me she did pack a lunch. So the natural outcome is she's just going to need to be hungry. And hopefully nobody gives her food and nobody steps in and gives her a lunch. I'm gonna explain the rules to this.
7.
Okay, loves, with that out of the way, let's get into the courtroom. People are going wild over this.
Franke and Hildebrandt had their first court appearance Friday in Washington County.
My case is assigned to Judge Barnes. I would make an oral motion today to transfer this case to Judge Walton so the co-defendants track each other.
First of all, the interest in the 8 passengers case has been super high to the point that it has been derailing the hearing, y'all. People are literally tuning in to watch the court hearings live, while others are showing up in person just to catch a glimpse of this infamous duo.
One of the lawyers outside the court told everyone that even the judge was having a hard time signing on to the online hearing with as many as 1,200 observers. Some people even showed up in person to see the latest in a case that had both captivated and concerned them.
Now, let's talk about their first court hearing. The judge decided to switch things up, making Ruby's judge the same as Jody's to help streamline the process. And it was also determined that the two will continue to be held without bond. But guess what, y'all? Our 2 masters of torture have already had it in jail. They are asking for an expedited detention hearing, which basically means that they're trying to speed up the process and get released on bond, citing health challenges. These 2 can even bring in doctors to confirm that they have a rare jail-titis, a condition that only affects them in custody. Nobody is buying into their shenanigans. So they were healthy enough to torture others for years, but taking accountability is where they draw the line. I thought they were all about living by the consequences of your actions. Of course, many people wish they would rot in prison, but that's not even the meat of it. Let me shift your attention to a separate child welfare hearing case for Ruby Franke and her husband to determine the custody of their children. It was during this hearing that Ruby said the unthinkable, like literally trying to drag her kids down with her. Would you believe that Ruby Franke blatantly blamed her children for making her treat them the way that she did, even going as far as accusing one of them of well. So you're telling me that the same Ruby, who has been emotionally, physically, mentally, and financially abusive towards her own, is the victim here? Let's just read the rest of the article before dissecting this further. Mother of 6, Ruby Franke sobbed in court as she appeared for a shelter hearing for her 4 minor children to determine custody. Speaking to the public courtroom Thursday, the Mormon mom at times broke down as she made shocking claims that one of her minor children, their sibling, and several other family members and children in the neighborhood over the years. Okay, loves, can we brainstorm on this slowly and without being biased? You see, the thing is, we can't totally sweep these allegations under the rug because if this wild tale is true, we're talking about over 20 here. But hear me out, loves. We've all seen how these kids were dealt the strict for the tiniest of slip-ups. Ruby, with her rock-solid Mormon beliefs, always said that people should face the consequences of their choices. So, are you seriously telling me that this same Ruby would let such a serious issue slide under her radar? That this child she's accusing had a hand in something so grave, involving over 20 kids, including relatives? I mean, this isn't so Ruby-like, if you ask me. Furthermore, she broke down severely during these custody hearings, which is also quite quite unlike her. And some people would say that those were just crocodile tears to get the sympathy votes. Well, let's leave it up to the courts to decide the truth of the matter. But one thing's for sure, my friends, there are some serious, major red flags waving here. And if this turns out to be a made-up tale, we might just be dealing with a classic psychopath. It gets worse, loves. This matter keeps going south. The article also says she claimed that one of the Franke kids began looking at just 3 years old. Now, if this were true, then Ruby might have cooked her own goose here. Because if a 3-year-old is watching such adult content, the real question is, how did the kid get access to the material? There's no way a 3-year-old would intentionally and categorically set out to look for those kinds of things and watch. I mean, that's purely Cocomelon era. So Ruby might have added yet another case to answer, because both the public and the courts would want to know who was granting that kid access to porn. By the end of this session, it was clear that Ruby Franke only showed up to do one job: character. Yet she and her estranged husband publicly displayed alarming levels of child neglect, emotional and physical, to the point that they were no longer being referred to as the 8 passengers, but as 6 prisoners. It is so unfortunate that after years and years of serving as a fake personality, fake smiles, and a fake happy family, Ruby's true colors showed during that custody hearing. You'd think any normal parent would be sobbing at the idea of their kids ending up in foster homes until you meet Ruby Franke, sadly. That was the best option for the 8 passenger kids. The worst part is that these poor kids are likely to be split up. And let's not even start on how tough that'll be for them. The public outrage concerning this case isn't dying down anytime soon, and some people have even created a guide on how to spot parents based on this incident. So this is where YouTube had to take a stand, and they said enough is enough. They finally deleted any traces of Ruby and Jody's presence on their platform, which came after years and years of public uproar. One of the YouTube correspondents said, "We can confirm that we have terminated 2 channels linked to Ruby Franke in accordance with our creator responsibility guidelines." What took them so long though? The truth is, regulating these family vlog channels or just any other channel on the platform is quite a challenge. You see, while it's true that exploiting your kids and trying to look happy is unacceptable, there is so much that goes into proving that the channel had broken community guidelines. Furthermore, family members have also been stepping up and sharing their side of the story. They have really had it tough, because can you imagine how tough this must be for them? People have been pointing fingers at them, saying they should have rescued these poor kids sooner, yet we don't know what they have been dealing with behind closed doors.
Arrested.
If you have the internet, you have seen news articles on my sister, Ruby, from the 8 passengers, and my sisters and I, we are on the very same page.
Apart from Ruby's sister, someone else is talking. Kevin's nephew, Matthew Franke, also had a ton to say, especially regarding his aunt's practices and Jody's too. Matthew is also the other person who has boldly called out for the arrest of Kevin, because let's be real for a minute, guys, he's just as guilty as the 2 ladies.
Be in public anymore. And as sad as I am to say it, I think Kevin should be arrested too. Me and my dad have been having a hard time believing that he had 0 contact with his family, that he had no idea that, you know, Ruby would leave them for long stretches of time.
Now, currently there is no official schedule.
Matthew admitted that Ruby came off as super strict and had strange views on a lot of things, but he never imagined how far she could go with this whole disciplining kids situation.
Doing that to her children.
Did you believe it based on your knowledge of their home life, or did you talk about it in that family group chat, supportively of Ruby or otherwise?
We didn't really talk supportively of Ruby, because our family specifically, we've never really been super fond of her, because she hasn't really been super fond of us. So a couple of my sisters, for example, were like, "Oh, she finally got arrested," and
is that how you felt, Matthew?
A little bit. I didn't think that she would get arrested for anything. I certainly thought that she had Utah mom vibes, was, you know, kind of strict, had strange thought processes on things, but I never thought that she would have been capable of doing that to
Matthew also disclosed that they had very limited contact with Ruby and the kids, and that they never knew about all these, which makes perfect sense because just like Jody choosing to live in a secluded neighborhood, there's something about separating you from the rest of the world before they start hurting you. And in the case of these kids, they were not mature enough to spot what is.
Children during the few encounters that he had with them over the last couple of years.
Did you ever witness her doing anything that was harsh towards the kids, your cousins?
No. Admittedly, though, I've only seen them over a few brief encounters over the last 10 years, like the rest of my family. Just the occasional lunch with my cousin Sherry, and then Christmas family reunions up at my grandparents' home. And when we would see them then, everything seemed fine. You know, they always had something to kind of brag about, you know, something good to report on. So yeah, we didn't really think any of that was going on.
Well, so there you have it, loves. Ruby Franke has gone from being a mom and a family vlogger to a defendant.
I'm only going to say it one more time, and then you're going to lose the privilege to eat dinner.
The 8 passengers case is one that will linger around for quite some time, and many believe we haven't even gotten to the worst part yet. Anyways, loves, keep it locked here, because I'll always keep you in the loop on the latest developments in the case.
Maybe not perfectly or in a way that we exactly want, but there's always a way to fix things. And I just wanted to end on that note of hope. Not even just for my situation, but for all of yours, for anyone that hears this.
Bonnie Hollian, Ruby Franke's sister, is back in the spotlight spilling some tea on the 8 passengers situation. And she has addressed quite a number of issues that have been going on since Ruby's arrest, and trust me, it is a lot to unpack. People have also noticed some pretty strange patterns and behaviors within their family, which might just shed some light on why Ruby Franke ended up the way that she did, and we'll dive deeper into this a bit later. In a recent emotional Instagram story, Bonnie talked about how their family has been in the spotlight ever since Ruby's arrest, saying how it has been such a roller coaster for them because they have received support and hatred in equal measure. That's not all, loves, because there's more drama. Can you believe that Kevin Franke tried to get his own daughter, Sherry, arrested? Besides that, Bonnie isn't the only family member talking. Ruby's other sister, Julie, dropped a 5-minute video that painted a clearer picture of the family dynamic. As you can already tell, this 8 passengers case is a wild ride. And by the way, you guys, as you listen to Bonnie's story, I want y'all to pay attention to the vibes she's giving off, because believe it or not, a lot of people were offended by everything she said. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but we're definitely going to discuss this immediately after she's done talking, so stay tuned. First of all, guys, did you know that the family is under a gag order, which basically means that they can't speak publicly about the 8 passengers case? However, Bonnie found a way around it without causing any legal drama. So in her IG stories, it came off more like thanking all the awesome people who have checked up on her during this crazy time, but if you listen closely, she's dropping some major bombshells in there. But the real deal here is that Bonnie's super confident that the 8 passenger kids are gonna get a second shot at a bright future.
I'm gonna try really hard not to cry when I tell you this. It seems like that's all I can do is just cry, whether it's for happy reasons, sad reasons, depressed reasons, anxiety reasons.
Bonnie said that she decided to record this video because it was the first time since all these started that she's been able to open her messages, and as you can imagine, her inbox has been blowing up.
Would see, you know, people's names pop down when everything was first coming out, and it was very comforting just to see people's names pop down on my phone. And so I saw that and I appreciated that.
She was very emotional when talking about how kind and sweet people have been to her, and that even though there have been some not so kind comments floating around, she's chosen to focus on the good vibes because that's what she needs right now, especially mentioning distant family members like her aunts and uncles who have reached out and offered help in any way possible.
All of my aunts, all of my uncles, getting words of love and support and asking what they can do. Unfortunately, I took them up on their offer. I'm like, oh, you're offering to help me in time of need? Well, please come on over.
Bonnie said that ever since the 8-passenger saga broke the airwaves, she's been getting messages from friends she hasn't seen in like forever. We're talking about friends from grade school and even people she hasn't talked to in like 20 years. Like a friend of hers called Blake that she hasn't seen for ages, but Blake's mom reached out to her just to check on her.
And I did have a little relationship with his family, and they treated me so good. And the way we treat people just really matters. She never did anything extravagant. She just was kind to me.
And then there's another childhood friend of hers who straight up showed up at their mom's door with flowers just to give her a big hug and some comfort.
I had a friend that I grew up with from the 2nd grade until we graduated, and I haven't seen her in a very long time, and she showed up at my door here at my mom's house, and just to hug me and bring me flowers, I sobbed. I sobbed. And she brought love from all the friends, you know, the friend group, and that was just so tender.
Now, here's where some people started raising eyebrows.
Obviously, so many more people that I have not talked to in I don't know how long, just saying, we know who you are, we know your family.
Hold up. So, while it's totally sweet and thoughtful for people she hasn't spoken to in years to reach out, it's sort of unrealistic for them to say things like, we know your family. I mean, if you haven't seen someone for 2 whole decades, do you even really know them?
And I think this next one is really important because it is all of the strangers throughout the world that have sent messages. And I was really scared to start posting again. The response has been more than I could intake. And so for those of you that watch and care, it does mean a lot.
Bonnie went ahead to say that she understands why people are so curious about her family's story, relating it to how she's also into watching other people's lives on the internet and how you get more invested when your fave TV show characters go through some drama.
This next one is really hard for me to put into words, but the amount of people that have expressed their concern for my mom and dad.
Oh, and she even added a caption saying, people who know my parents in person love them to their core because they know how good of people they are. They have dedicated their lives to their family, their church, their neighbors, and strangers.
Is the most overwhelming part of people reaching out. All of my mom's nieces and nephews just adore her, and they adore her because of the way she treats them. They know that she loves them. People in the neighborhood are mourning for her and my dad because they know who my parents are at their core.
Bonnie went on and on talking about how tender and loving and caring and kind and amazing her parents are, and even though her father might seem a bit intimidating sometimes, he's actually a super nice guy. Alright, loves, I hope you're taking notes because we'll be analyzing Bonnie's messages in a second. Anyways, loves, let's just finish up with Bonnie's messages because we haven't even gotten to her sister Julie yet. Bonnie even shared messages from one of her sister's ex-boyfriends, and it was literally a whole essay about how awesome Bonnie's parents are. So again, remember, these are people that she hasn't talked to in over 20 years, but this guy apparently had some life-changing moment with Bonnie's mom. He goes on and on and on about how he has so much love for her amazing parents, referring to a particular incident when he showed up at their place looking like a punk with spiky hair and a bandana. And guess what? Bonnie's parents were totally chill about it. Her mom even complimented his hair, and for that reason, this guy now treats people who look a little different from him with respect, just as he had been treated 20 years ago. Bonnie finalized by saying that she couldn't talk much because of the gag order, but that she still believes the 8-passenger children will have a great future.
Will they even have a fighting chance of a normal, good, happy life? I know they're going to be okay, and I really believe that they have a shot at a good future.
This was actually what everyone wanted to hear, but she just mentioned briefly that she believes they still have a shot at life. Remember, y'all, these kids went through some seriously tough times, like being tied up, going without food, and being humiliated. It was rough, and even though they are now out of immediate danger, their parents are still making their lives a living hell, especially with all of the disgusting things Ruby is saying in court. We'll get into all that drama later. Okay, loves, now let's get into it. What kind of vibes did you you get from Bonnie's talk? I've got some comments to share, and I want to know if you agree with these people. She's making this about Bonnie because she's losing major income. That's what those tears are for. Not a single word, not one word from Bonnie about how her heart breaks for the kids. Nothing. All me, me, me. It really bothers me how anytime these sisters speak on things, they never really mention the children. It's always about her parents, etc. Totally weird. No one in Ruby Franke's family sits well with me. They never mention great concern for the children who are going to have to recover from being severely abused. Only about how all of this is affecting them. They all seem off and really selfish. She's obnoxious, a drama queen. It's all about her. The kids will never be right. Why does she need support? No one did anything to her. It's all the money. The Mormon Church needs to be investigated. These families exposing their kids to make money is not right. What do you guys think? Do you also feel that everything the sisters have said since the onset of this case have just been about them and nothing really about the kids? Take Bonnie's case, for example. She's been talking about how tough things have been for her and how she needs support and how people have been coming from the blues to remind her of how nice her parents are, and everything else is like, hey, what about the kids, Bonnie? The funny thing is that this was the exact same case with Ruby's other sister, Julie, when she created a video addressing Ruby's arrest. She went on and on about how all these have taken a toll on her and how it was a particularly difficult time for her because her partner was away, she had moved to a new city, and she had to go through it all alone with the kids.
The past few weeks have been extremely hard. Not only did all that happen with Ruby, but I had just moved to a new state, and Landon had to go back to Utah to finish up his dissertation for his degree, and so I've been settling into a new home with the kids without his help, and all of this fell down. So I literally have not had the physical or emotional capacity to address anyone, nor do I need to address anyone, but here we are.
But here's the thing. The entire video didn't even touch on how the kids were doing. It was literally about her and her future content, to the point that the comment section was just full of people calling her out for being kind of self-centered and insensitive. It got so heated she had to apologize and explain that that wasn't her intention. So what do you guys think? Are they making it all about them, or is it just a misunderstanding? Furthermore, Julie also mentioned something striking in her video, that Ruby's behavior took a wild turn when she started attending Jody's therapy sessions, to the point that the family even thought about uninviting her from family get-togethers if she didn't stop with all that connection stuff.
3 years ago, Ruby, everything was great. It seemed to be fine anyway. We were a typical family. She was getting some therapy counseling because their family needed it, which I think is great. However, I think you need to get it from a great source. Read the reviews. Jody Hildebrandt and her website or therapy style, I don't know what you want to call it, connections, was not a great resource. And we all saw it. We all felt weird about this Jody lady. We weren't comfortable with it. We didn't like it. We didn't like the teachings Ruby was bringing to the family functions, and we were this close to telling her, if you come to our family events anymore, we do not want to hear what you were learning through connections because we don't like it. We never did say that to her, but we thought it.
She also mentioned that Ruby later decided to cut off the whole family, and that at some point she started behaving like she had been possessed by something.
She did call my mom and yelled at my mom on the phone for 45 minutes, and it was almost as if Ruby had been making up memories from her childhood. She was trying to grab at anything she could, and she would exaggerate on everything.
Now, onto the next chapter of this wild story. After Bonnie was done talking about how great her parents were, a video popped up online with Ruby's mom talking about her childhood.
When Ruby was a little girl, she was my oldest, and a lot of responsibility seemed to fall onto her, and she was such a good help to me, and she was my right arm sometimes. She really helped out, and I can remember telling her, Ruby, when you get a family and you and your husband go on a vacation, you call me because I'm going to come babysit for you because I owe you. And that is how I feel. I just feel like I really owe her some help because she was always so good to help me.
Okay, let's break it down. So when Ruby was a kid, her mom made her a deputy parent because she was the oldest. So she would take care of her younger siblings like a full-blown adult babysitter. And get this, her mom's way of thanking her was promising to babysit Ruby's future kids whenever she and her husband needed a break. Why? Because she supposedly owed her. This message didn't sit well with a lot of people, and a lot of the comments were along these lines. Ruby's mom. When Ruby was a little girl, she was my oldest, and a lot of responsibility seemed to fall on her, and she was such a good help to me. She was my right arm. Great lady, you parentified a little girl. I love how she framed it as seemed to fall on her, not I put a child in this position. Way to be accountable. Ruby's mom laid the groundwork for children not getting to be children. There's definitely some skeletons in their closet from their childhood. Why don't the grandparents come back to help with their grandchildren? Let's break down this last comment because it raises a very good comment, because why exactly isn't Ruby's mom coming through for her grandchildren as she had promised when she used to make little Ruby take care of hers? Some even pointed out that this whole cycle is like passing down generational traumas. I mean, if you watched 8 Passengers videos, then you definitely saw it play out, because Ruby literally made her firstborn daughter, Sherry, take care of the younger kids. Poor Sherry even had to play judge and peacemaker between Ruby and her other kids. Take a look at this video, for example, where Ruby's younger daughter, Eve, messed up a rug while playing with nail polish, and all Ruby could think about was how Eve was in big trouble, listing out all the punishments like no nails done for a month, no dessert cookies. Sherry, who's also a kid, had to remind her mother to look at the brighter side of things, and Eve wasn't hurt and the damage wasn't so bad. And even in the middle of all this madness and with Ruby in jail, Sherry has been the one going over and beyond to ensure that her siblings are okay, which brings us to the next part of this story, y'all. It gets crazier. Did you know that Kevin Franke tried to get his daughter Sherry arrested? Yes, you heard it right. Ruby and Franke are just two twisted people, and it literally makes sense that they got married because they are very compatible. So here's the scoop. Kevin and his attorney have been doing what many would call a media campaign, trying to portray him in the best light possible, saying how he wasn't aware of all of the abuse the children have been subjected to for years, and well, it turns out the mask is falling off and people are literally seeing Kevin for who he really is. A news article came out claiming that Kevin Franke wanted to file charges against his daughter for burglary. According to the article, Sherry had gone to the home to gather clothing and personal items for her sisters, and she was also in the company of a caseworker. The confusing part of all of this is that the same Kevin who has been singing how he's not been at home since their separation is the very same one who made a phone call to the Springfield police reporting the burglary on September 1st. The million-dollar question is, why exactly did Kevin want to sue his daughter? Turns out Kevin suspected that Sherry may have taken more than just her siblings' clothes and other personal items. The article says, Kevin allegedly reported that electronic items, specifically his electronic journals, were missing. He told officers he believes his oldest daughter, Sherry, is responsible due to a statement she made in court that day. Kevin thought that Sherry was the one who broke the door, but police later informed him that the front door had been broken days earlier after a search warrant was served, and that even Sherry already found it broken. So, what exactly is Kevin hiding, and what did Sherry say in court that made him so suspicious of her? A day after the boy escaped and the story broke, Sherry Franke asked the public to collect evidence against her parents and Jody and gave it to the police. When Kevin Franke, who was absent for over a year, realized that his diaries and other stuff had been removed by Sherry, he knew they had details that would implicate him, so he went rogue on his daughter, trying to intimidate her to get them back. Sherry handed them to the police, who took whatever was important for the case and returned the rest to Kevin. When Kevin and his lawyer realized what had happened, the two men immediately made a 180-degree turn, and Kevin now started love bombing the daughter, the same one he wanted to sue a day ago, while his manipulative lawyer started a fake fatherly love media tour saying how Kevin and Sherry were now reunited in love, blah blah blah. People are hoping that this incident will be enough to reveal to the authorities exactly what kind of an entitled, abusive liar Kevin Franke truly is, and that none of his other children would be safe with him if he is given custody. Because if he was ready to sue his own daughter, who knows how he would punish those kids, especially the one who ran to the neighbor to ask for help? If there's one thing people have learned about Kevin, Ruby, Jody, and Ruby's entire family, it's that they can go to any length to protect their image. So, while Kevin and his lawyer were out here looking like the good guys, Kevin was getting ready to go to war with his daughter. Sherry had taken 3 cameras, 3 tablets, 3 cell phones, 3 passports, and a stack of journals, which are obviously what Kevin didn't want anyone to get their hands on. We're yet to find out the content in those journals. Once the police told Kevin they could not arrest Sherry because she hadn't broken into their home, Kevin got so furious he threatened to sue the entire police department, y'all. He literally told them, "You'll be hearing from my lawyer soon." So yeah, Kevin can't fool us any longer. It's only a matter of time before this all catches up with him and that lawyer of his. Just like I had promised, guys, I'll be keeping you updated on this matter because, as Ruby Franke's sister Bonnie said, it has literally sparked public interest to the point that even the people she last spoke to 20 years ago are now keeping tabs. One thing's for sure though, there's still a ton of stuff hidden in the shadows, and trust me, these secrets will shake the internet even more than Ruby's arrested. And before I forget, loves, did you catch the latest drama in the courtroom with Ruby? She's stooping really low, guys. She's even making wild claims about her own kids, like accusing one of them of sexual harassment. If you missed it, just click on this video and you'll see how Ruby's taking things to a whole new level. And if that's not enough drama for you, Kevin's trying to sue Sherry. Seriously, what is it with these two people?
Today, Kevin Franke filed for divorce from his wife, Ruby Franke.
Today, November 29th, Kevin Franke filed in the state of Utah for divorce, as we understand it, and it was filed actually in the 4th District Court.
Kevin Franke has officially filed for divorce against his wife, Ruby Franke, after almost 1 year of separation. I don't think anyone has had enough of 2023 than Ruby. She's literally the perfect example from grace to grass, because who would have thought Ruby would fall this hard? On top of that, Kevin is also taking Jody Hittelbrandt down, you guys. This has gotten super messy. Without wasting a second, let's get right into it. After spending a better part of her life pretending to have a super happy family with fake smiles and matching outfits, curtains have closed for Ruby Franke. And no, she has neither received a standing ovation nor big claps because her performance was super disturbing and disgusting. Turns out everyone is leaving Ruby's camp, including her husband, who was also her partner in crime, y'all. Not even their wedding vows can save the situation. Ruby's life is now falling apart in a way she could have never expected. The moment Kevin saw Ruby being put behind bars, he literally said, Ruby dear, I know I made a vow to you that wherever you go, I will go, but no, prison ain't it, my darling. You'll have to do this alone.
And the petition for divorce is private, so we can't see a whole lot of it, but we do know that things were filed today here in the state of Utah.
According to reliable news sources, the nitty-gritty of the divorce has not yet been revealed, but some sections have been made available to the general public, which basically means the actual legal reason for the divorce hasn't been disclosed much. Well, of course we know the reason, only that most details about the matter are still private. However, going by tiny pieces available, it's super obvious that Kevin has decided to protect himself, as you will see as we go through it. However, going by what's currently available, it says, because this matter involves divorce, annulment, temporary separation, custody, parent time, child support, or paternity, the court makes the following orders. These orders apply to the petitioner and the respondent. The parties must not A. harass, intimidate, or disturb the peace of the other party by any means, including electronically. Let's just call it as it is, guys. Kevin is just telling Ruby, don't you call me or talk to me directly. If you have anything to say, contact my lawyer, you prisoner. I mean, he's free while Ruby is locked up. How else was Ruby gonna disturb or harass him? There's also no way Ruby would reach him other electronically, and he has decided to close that channel too. Okay, moving on. The document also directs Ruby and Franke not to B. commit domestic violence or abuse against the other party or a child. At this point, Kevin is flat out mocking Ruby, y'all. Also notice how he's still claiming innocence on the ongoing child abuse case by sneaking in words like that none of the parties should commit any acts of violence against a child. Kevin is just trying to convince the world that he is a thoughtful parent who minds his kids, but it's too late for that, Kevin. We already know the truth. The next order of the divorce papers bans both Kevin and Ruby against C. using the other party's name, likeness, image, or identification to get credit, open an account for service, or obtain a service. This is the part where Ruby now has to drop Franke because the owner wants it back. Okay, she doesn't necessarily have to drop it, but basically she's being warned that it's the end of the road for her because her soon-to-be ex-husband doesn't want any official engagements between them. Oh, and that part about bank accounts, I'm pretty sure there isn't much left in their joint account. There's a high chance that they were almost done eating all the YouTube money they made by exploiting their children. Let me tell you guys, people have never rejoiced at someone else's downfall the way that they're celebrating this one. And I'll show you a couple of comments later, but for now, let's continue going going through the document. Okay, on to the next point. D, they are both not allowed to cancel or interfere with telephone, utility, or other services used by the other party. Now, this is a bit sus, y'all. You know what? This is all Kevin's lawyer's idea. Yep, it looks like Ruby and Kevin still have a few leftover coins from their kids' YouTube money, and Kevin doesn't want Ruby to stop him from using it for his own personal expenses like paying the phone bill or something. For someone who has spent pretty much all her life flexing her power over others, she must be having breathing problems because the tables have turned and now she doesn't have control. Furthermore, this order will only work in Kevin's favor now that Ruby will be in jail for so long, and Kevin will be out here finishing up everything they shared. This document only gets worse, y'all. It literally gets worse, especially for Ruby. E, none of them is allowed to cancel, modify, terminate, change the beneficiary, or allowed to lapse for voluntary non-payment of premiums without the written consent of the other party or pursuant to further order of the court. Any policy of 1. Health insurance, 2. Homeowners or rental insurance, 3. Automobile insurance, or 4. Life insurance. Ruby must get an equally good lawyer just like Kevin did because things are going to get messy here. It's obvious that Ruby will want to contest so many things in this divorce because she won't have equal freedom and privilege as Kevin, and yet Kevin will still have access to her money. On top of that, the document further states that F, regarding the division of property, personal property, or debts, both parties are not allowed to make any moves like disposing or transferring such property to a third party unless there is written consent from the other person or when there's a court order. Here's where it gets interesting though. It says that even though they both cannot dispose or sell the stuff they own together, there will be instances when it will be allowed to provide for the necessities of life. What will stop Kevin from selling the family car to provide for the necessities of life? Now on to the next part of this crazy story, guys. Kevin is also going after Jody Hiddlebrand, Ruby's business partner, who is now facing 6 counts of child abuse charges just like her fellow Ruby. Kevin is now petitioning the state of Utah to thoroughly vet people before giving licenses to therapists and life coaches. In simple terms, Kevin is just throwing shade towards Ruby and Jody's business connections, where Jody and the mental health counselor, while Ruby Franke's title was Certified Fitness Mental Health Trainer. These two delusional women used to give the most outrageous and unreasonable parenting advice.
One way to know if your child is managing what is on their plates is to ask, is my child showing up cheerful? Is my child showing up responsible? Is my child available if I ask her to do something like, hey, could you wash up the dishes for me? Hey, would you mind taking out the garbage? Are they available to say, yeah, sure, Or are they pushing back? I don't have time, I can't do that. That tells you they're not managing, because someone who's managing has time and space and motive for serving those around.
You go into loving yourself, but you're not principled about it, you're going to slip, you're going to hurt yourself. That's where it goes into the selfishness. You have to have the principles with the soul in order for it to be self-love.
Besides parenting, the two business partners would also address topics such as relationships, self-improvement, basically styling themselves as life coaches. Ruby and Jody even offered classes to help parents deal with their children.
I love anger only when it's used in truth. Only in truth. And obviously you can have very clear, motivating anger inside truth. And unfortunately, most of us don't know how to do that. That when we feel anger, it predominantly goes into this place of distortion.
After everything we've seen and heard from people who survived Jody, like her niece, Jessie Hiddlebrand, we can now understand why she would justify that anger is a good thing. By the way, guys, the most mind-blowing thing here is that Jody was busy dishing out wisdom, yet her license as a therapist and mental health counselor had been canceled somewhere in 2011 when she one day discussed one of her male clients' personal struggles in church without the client's consent. Jody should have taken this as a clue to either leave the profession for good or change her ways and start acting like a normal human being. But she was too self-absorbed and believed her problematic therapy styles were just okay. Jody is just a psychopath, y'all. Let's call it as it is. To add to that, it has now been public that the Mormon Church will still approve of her as a therapist and referred church members to her, which would explain why she still got clients even after her license had been taken away. Ruby, on the other hand, has more cases to answer because while she presented herself as a certified mental health trainer, it now turns out that the information is far from the truth, which brings us to the next part of this drama, y'all, which explains why Kevin is asking for this law to be enforced in Utah. Other than the harsh jabs he has thrown at Ruby in the divorce document, he has added a cherry on top by literally telling the state that she was not even a qualified mental health trainer like she claimed. Anyways, Kevin can pretend all he wants about being at the forefront of fighting quack therapists and life coaches, but he can't fool anyone right now. He's just trying to gather public attention and pity. But on a very serious note, y'all, can we talk about Kevin? No, seriously. Is he getting away with mistreating those kids? The fact that he hasn't been arrested is beyond me. He is out here acting like a hero when it's a well-known fact that he was just as bad of a parent as Ruby. There are literally thousands of videos of Kevin present and even joining Ruby in disciplining their kids. Like the time that they took Chad's bed away for 6 months and made him sleep on a beanbag. And then there was the time that he personally took away the kids' homework and made them pay or do extra house chores to get their homework back. There are also countless times when both Ruby and Kevin made the kids sleep on bathroom floors, especially when they were sick, saying it would be easier to reach the toilet bowl in case they wanted to throw up. People just couldn't stomach the kind of parents they were and called them out on so many occasions. And so for years, people tried to get the police and CPS involved in this case. There was even an online petition at one point begging the authorities to rescue those kids, but guess what? Ruby and Kevin somehow managed to slip through the cracks, even making a video where they basically laughed at all of us because they thought that they were untouchable.
I was accused of abuse. It's like, it's abuse to expect your children to be responsible.
To grow up and be productive adults.
Kevin and Ruby even made decisions together regarding punishing the kids, like the one time that they sent Chad away in the wilderness. It was also around that time that CPS went over to the house to check on the well-being of the kids, and when he was asked why they sent their child in the middle of nowhere against the child's will, his response was, as for Chad, he's in a wonderful place right now with a good group of friends and a healthy outlook on life where he holds high standards and high boundaries. Then he added, he's definitely not chained in our basement. Chained in the basement? This right here proves that chaining kids in the basement was something Ruby and Frank would do so often. Because how can such a piece of information just come out of nowhere? For someone who made money from mistreating his kids for years, either Kevin just has a shit ton of audacity, or he's yet another psychopath just like Ruby and Jody if he thinks he's actually innocent. I don't know about y'all, but I believe Kevin has only managed to stay out of jail this whole time because he has a lawyer. You see, the moment Ruby was arrested, Kevin and his lawyer dropped everything and focused on making Kevin look innocent. They'd hop from one media house to another trying to convince the public that Kevin was innocent, and their strongest argument was that Kevin wasn't in the house when the mistreatments were happening. However, tell me why Kevin's lawyer suddenly couldn't comment when asked about Kevin's actions and involvement when he was still at home.
One of the allegations is that the kid, Chad, wasn't allowed to sleep in a bed for 7 months. Why did he think that was okay?
I can't comment on that. I have a duty to my client, to the court, not to comment on that question.
So now suddenly he has a duty to protect his client. I mean, come on, he was an active participant. The fact that he's painting himself as a good parent is actually insulting to his own kids because they experienced his harshness firsthand, and when he was the one who was supposed to protect them. Anyways, we all know that he was involved, and no amount of cover-up can convince people otherwise. So many people are actually still shocked that almost 3 months after Ruby's arrest, Kevin is still roaming the streets as a free man, and now he's the one calling on Utah to do better when licensing life coaches and therapists. Sometimes reality is stranger than fiction, y'all.
The horse is out of the barn, all right? Your client let the mother put the kids' lives and all the discipline all over the place on YouTube. So that decision was just fine when they were monetizing it. Now all of a sudden they want standards and they want us to be careful about the kids. The careful question here goes to whether or not they were careful with the kids. Did your husband have a role in the behavior that's now being charged?
Absolutely not.
How? when he's the father and he was in the house? How did he not know and not do anything about it?
Mom had the kids for the summer and went out of the county with the kids. And if he had known of or thought there was abuse going on, he would have been all over it.
So is your suggestion that everything that has been charged happened after he left?
Correct.
So none of the things that the mother has been charged with happened when he was in the house?
That's correct. It happened in a house that was a couple of 100 miles away from where Mr. Franke was.
I know he wants us to believe he had no part in the latest parenting tragedy, but he supported withholding food as punishment. But Kevin wanted his daughter charged with burglary. They're both nuts, those poor children. He needs to petition his church to stop recommending counseling by unsafe clergy and counselors. I love how enablers never think that they are part of the problem. So back to Ruby. For someone who for a very long time believed she had it together, Ruby Franke is now left disgraced, ashamed, and alone because her life is far from what she had pictured, and so many have pointed it out. I watched this lady for years and all her siblings. I was in on the gossip boards back then, and we pointed out all the crazy Ruby stuff, but never in my wildest dreams did I expect it to play out like this. Like, I knew she was nutty and would make it on the show's World's Strictest Parents, but this is so beyond horrific. The stark contrast between her crimes and the amazing do-it-all supermom persona she portrayed is really fascinating. She wanted to be YouTube famous and a top Mormon influencer. Now she'll be remembered as some lunatic who got sucked into a crazy cult and tied up her kids. Just sad. I hope the kids find safety and healing far away from cameras. Also guys, is it just me, or is Kevin doing the most to distance himself from his once upon a time love of his life? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, guys, and keep it here because y'all, I'll keep you posted on any new developments to the 8 passengers case.